Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti. This evening's topic is Old Saybrook Youth and Family, and with me to discuss what's going on with the agency is Heather McNeil, who's the Executive Director of Old Saybrook Youth and Family. Welcome, how are you?
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for having me back.
Good to see you again.
Thanks, good to see you too.
What's new?
Well, I think the last time we were here, it was December, and we were talking about the Starlight Festival, so I wanted to give you a little recap of how that went. And so that was early December in Old Saybrook, right on the town green, and our agency is responsible for organizing some activities for folks with young kids. Okay. And so we did that in a variety of different ways, and of course Santa Claus came at about 2:30, and that was a big hit for all the kids. And then our primary goal while we're there, besides having fun, is to raise money for the Shoreline Soup Kitchen and pantries. And we raised about $1,700 through the generosity of sponsors and folks who came to take part in the activities. We keep the cost really, really low for families so that everyone can come and have a good time. And the word I got from economic development was that the businesses really appreciated the extra foot traffic in town that day. And then of course at the Cape, the Gold Star families, there's a special solemn ceremony at 5 o'clock where the tree lighting takes place. And that's always a beautiful ceremony. So it was a good event.
Nice. Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about your organization.
Sure. Youth and Family Services in Old Saybrook. Actually, this year is our 50th year.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of think you should have me on every month so we can talk about what we're doing.
All right.
And so it's really a central organization in Old Saybrook in the sense it's kind of the hub of a lot of other services. And people often come to Youth and Family Services when they don't know where else to go. Right. And we have the information to direct them. But Youth and Family Services and Youth Service Bureaus in Connecticut are actually legislatively mandated. And so I think there's 147 in 169 towns. Okay. And our primary goals are prevention education, positive youth development, and human services. So Old Saybrook combines all of that together. And we have clinical services with mental health counseling available for individuals and families and groups.
Now tell us about your background.
Sure. I've been at the agency coming up on 15 years. Okay. I'm a marriage and family therapist and licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And so I was a clinical supervisor in New London County before coming to this agency. Right. But I raised all 3 children in Old Saybrook and they went through the schools there. So very familiar with all the systems in town and that really made stepping into this role that much easier.
Now you guys actually probably advocate with all the other youth and family services within your district or your area.
We do. We work together very closely across the state. We have a state organization called CYSA, Connecticut Youth Service Association. Okay. And then we have a region, and actually we're meeting tomorrow at our agency. We rotate. But Haddam Killingworth is part of mine, HK. I know you had Ali Benke here recently. Yep. Durham Middlefield, Clinton, Westbrook, Lyme Old Lyme, Saybrook, and that might be it. No, Portland. Okay. As well. So we all work together sharing resources, information, tricks of the trade, and usually youth service bureaus, there's a struggle with funding, so we all share what we know and what we have with each other, which is the best way to meet our community's needs.
So what's the organization been up to since the last time you and I sat down together?
Sure, thanks. Well, right after I saw you the last time, we actually did a Youth Voices Count survey for grades 6 through 12. Okay. And in Old Saybrook, it was the first time 6th graders had been included in the survey process. And we actually hadn't done a survey since 2017, when only the 9th through 12th graders were surveyed. So it was really a big deal. And we are just waiting for the data to come back so that we can roll that out in the community and to the Board of Ed. And it measures a broad range of things, what we call protective factors as well as risk factors. Right. And some of the protective factors are things like positive adult role models, whether it's within the community or within their home, access to goods and services, quality education, which of course we know Old Saybrook provides. And some of the at-risk things are folks who are potentially financially under-resourced or maybe don't have parents or guardians who can guide them towards positive extracurricular activities or a variety of other things. So when that info comes back, we'll design programs and services to help support the areas of vulnerability and to help enhance the areas that show up as assets.
Now, when should that information come back? It usually probably takes a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was done electronically, so it should be any day now.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and then we'll schedule a series of community conversations to roll it out in the community, because the upper grades parents will want to hear that separately from our 6th grade parents. And so we have to design a way to get it out to folks in a way that makes sense to them.
Now, what type of information was in the report?
Well, what we'll get back, I think it was about 62 questions, but it does ask kids, for instance, areas of risk might be how much time they spend on social media or online gambling even.
Right.
And at what age are folks starting to give kids phones? So we do know from the research that the younger kids are exposed to some of that. We see an increase in anxiety and some other social behaviors.
Right.
So it's helpful for us to know that piece. But we also like to know if kids feel like they're safe in their environment, whether it's the community, at home, or at school. And then do they know someone that they can go and talk to if they're not feeling that way? How would they identify someone to talk to? We do know from working with our teenagers that they often rely on each other as, you know, a shoulder.
Right.
But we don't necessarily want adolescents to carry the responsibility for a friend who might be thinking of hurting themselves, for instance. So we want them to know to come and talk to an adult, a trusted adult.
Now, what types of programs and services do you guys offer?
So we have after-school programs, so that's typically grades 3 through 8. So on their half days, when they only have a half day of school, we actually take them to different locations like Mystic Aquarium or even the Rainforest Project in Deep River, you've probably heard of.
Yes.
Gillette's Castle. We try to get kids outside as much as possible. And the nice thing about Old Saybrook, I think, is that we have very robust programming also at Park and Rec and at the Kate Theater. So there's a lot of choice that parents have in terms of what to do. The piece that we offer that may be different is that our staff are trained as mental health clinicians as well.
Right.
So some of those kids who can't maintain or take part in just a general kind of program can come to one of ours, and we have special supports that can help them enjoy, but also learn how to, like conflict resolution, social emotional development, relationship skill building, things like that.
Very cool. You guys are a very busy organization.
It is busy. It is busy. Yeah.
So let's see what else we want to mention. And now, as far as, obviously the legislative session just started, so what are you guys looking?
Yeah, actually last week our regional group got together. We had a legislative breakfast. There was no food involved because it was virtual this year, but Senator Needleman was there, Devin Carney. We always appreciate their support.
Oh, sure.
And all of my peers were there, and CYSA also came because we talk about some of the areas of concern we have in terms of funding. Excuse me. Pardon me.
That's all right.
And then we also discuss the Dalio report, which I had shared with you, because the organization's focus for some time is going to be on Connecticut's unspoken crisis, as it's called.
Right.
Disconnected youth ages 14 to 26.
Now let's talk about it.
Sure.
Let's talk about it.
Sure. I think it was a surprise to most of us who received the report. There's 119 identified youth at risk in Connecticut, and what that means is kids from the ages of 14 to 26 potentially, so young adults. And so 63,000 of the 119 are at risk for a variety of different things. They're unemployed, they may be struggling to finish school, and then 56,000 of the 119 are at high risk, which means their housing is very insecure, they may not have enough nutrition, they may not have a guardian who's in the home all the time, or they may have parents who are incarcerated. So it's really important for us to work very collaboratively with schools to be able to track chronic absenteeism and help students who are experiencing that and see if we can learn more about the story behind why they might be missing so much school. That's one area.
Okay. And I'm sure there's other areas.
Keep 2025 fraud-free with these 3 tips from Better Business Bureau. Be wary of unsolicited emails from a person or company. Remember, scammers can make emails look like they are from a legitimate business, government agency, or reputable organization. Never click on links or open attachments in unsolicited emails. If you haven't met a person face-to-face, don't send them money. This is especially true if the person asks you to transfer funds using a prepaid debit card or Cash App. Money sent to strangers in this way is untraceable, and once it's sent, there's no getting it back. And resolve to research the retailer before entering payment information when shopping online. Ask, is this a person or business I know and trust? Do they have a working customer service number? Where is the company physically located? And have I checked to see if others have complained? Visit bbb.org to read complaints and reviews and find a trusted company near you.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti, sitting here with Heather McNeil, who is with Old Saybrook Youth and Family Services. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we were talking a little bit during the break about the Dalio report. Maybe we can get into a little bit more detail of the report?
Sure. As I was mentioning to you, some of us were surprised to learn how many disconnected youth they identified within Connecticut. And the report was largely from data from 2021 and 22. But the languaging for addressing the situation is languaging that youth service bureaus are already very familiar with.
Right.
So it's not necessarily adding something new onto what we already do, but coming alongside the work that we already do.
Right.
So we're going to be expanding some of that. And so some of it is to get the word out about what are disconnected youth. And sometimes when I go to speak to meetings, people are shocked to learn how big the age range is, but 14 to 26. And I'm not really sure necessarily what part COVID played in some of that, the increase in the numbers of those youth, but it certainly had something to do with it. So we really want to get out there, and I thank you for this opportunity to talk so that we can describe what disconnected youth look like within our community, so that people can identify those students and begin to think about how can we work with them.
Right.
And one other way is to improve coordination between stakeholders, which means that I go to town meetings and I go to boards and commissions and talk to the Board of Finance and the selectmen about what we're seeing within our own school. But also last October, in the legislation, they passed a bill about youth service bureaus and school districts signing a memorandum of understanding to kind of formalize the arrangement that most of us already have, where we have some access with parents' permission to student information so that we can take a look at the whole experience that a youth is having, whether it's the academic piece, extracurriculars, or other areas that they need help. And we can identify ways that we can support them. And then we work very closely with school systems to do that. Because of course, youth service bureaus provide services all throughout the year, and schools close during the summer.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're bridging that gap in a lot of different ways for students. But also we have the opportunity to work with families after school hours and during the evening and provide counseling services, but also social services.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a very busy organization.
It is busy. All the youth service bureaus in the region are very busy. Every community is different. Excuse me.
Sure.
But there's some things that are the same community to community. It's going to happen again. Sorry.
That's it.
So, at the legislative breakfast last week,
Yes.
I spoke to my colleagues who work for the private nonprofits and try to encourage the towns to recognize the value of their services and try to direct more resources to those bureaus, because that doesn't always happen. And I think it's really, really important. In Old Saybrook, I'm very, very lucky because we're largely municipally funded. About 72% of our budget's municipally funded, so I appreciate that. But we have, again, the 50-year history, which helps.
Now, where are you guys in Old Saybrook?
We're right next to the fire department on 322 Main Street.
Okay.
So it looks like Grandma's house, but we have 5 clinical offices upstairs, and social services is housed within our agency as well.
Okay.
Kids from the middle school can walk over there after school.
Yep.
And Park and Rec is right across the way as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Kind of.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And you guys are a hop, skip, and a jump from the town hall.
Right. And the fire department and the ambulance.
Yep.
So in case anything goes wrong, I've got everybody around us. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So what are you guys hoping to get done with the legislative session, which just started?
I think, again, in terms of information sharing, I think legislators are so busy with a ton of different priorities.
Oh, yeah.
But meeting with them at the beginning of the session really puts them in the forefront. Plus, we have Jay Aronson, who's our lobbyist, who's very present and visible up there, always keeping our concerns, in the forefront. And so talking with our legislators about the impact that, for instance, the at-risk students have on the economic viability of our community.
Right.
This is actually a place where a lot of services go, and then if we can work to turn that trend and they can become employable and finish school and become higher functioning, that works towards the economic strength of the community. So helping them understand that process is important.
Now, I know we talked a little bit about in the first segment about the Delio report. Maybe we can get into a little bit more detail of the report and exactly what it is and what it entails.
Sure. I think that the important thing about it was a few years ago, youth service bureaus were tasked with all submitting data in the same format because we were all doing it in different ways, and that was very hard to track what was going on in each town. Once they got us all in line with that data collection process, they're able to track the kinds of programming we do, the kinds of people we serve, and the outcomes that they were seeing. Right. And then that, combined with some of the school information, led them to identify this large percentage of the population that is receiving a high percentage of services at all levels. I'm wondering what's going on with that, because it's new. This percentage of the population hasn't always been present, especially in that age range. Young adults are launching from home later and later in life, where people might have gone to college and then gone and left home at 22 and gone out. There's a lot of reasons for that. Right. Some of it is the cost of housing, but some of it is the emotional development has been stunted for a variety of different reasons. And so we're trying to figure out how can we help support and help these kids individuate, as we call it.
Right. Now, you said before that you guys are funded. Now, do you guys also do fundraisers, or how are you funded?
In Old Saybrook, we've been lucky that within the last 6 years, we became largely municipally funded. Okay. So I don't have to spend a lot of my time doing that. We have a very generous community, and people do make donations to us from time to time, and we did just receive a legacy endowment from someone who passed away, which we really appreciate. Because the agency's been there so long, we've often worked with 2 or 3 generations of the same family, and that was the case with this donation that we got. But some of the private nonprofits do have to do road races and all kinds of fundraisers, and that's great because it serves a lot of purposes. We get volunteers and kids involved in those activities, but it also takes away the energy and the resources from being able to focus on the work that we actually need to be doing. So,
I believe Haddam Killingworth does a road race.
They do.
I was going to say, I think so.
They do. They do a lot of great stuff.
And now, how closely do you work with all your other youth and family services organizations from your area?
Regionally, we get together once a month.
Okay.
And then annually, we get together with the CYSA all in one place, so everybody from the state gets together. But we're in almost constant communication via email. Right. And then this region, we've known each other for a long time. I think Middletown, you might know Justin Carbonella. He and I have been in there about the same amount of time. And so people who are newer to the director position will call us and ask for advice or feedback or tips. So.
Exactly. Hey, I need this. I don't know what to do. What do you recommend?
Right, and because we do a lot of the same things, there's no reason for any of us to recreate a wheel. No. We can share curriculums and program ideas and things like that. Right. No one guards their stuff very closely.
No, absolutely not. So what else are you guys up to with youth and family that we want to talk about? Yeah,
I think that a really interesting growth area has been senior citizens in Old Saybrook. Sure. And so about 18 months ago, we started the Grandparents Raising Grandchildren group in Old Saybrook at the estuary. It's once a month, usually the 4th Monday of the month. And that was actually started at Henry Carter Hall Library in Clinton and ran there for many years. They asked if they could transfer it over to Old Saybrook because they lost some leadership over in Clinton. And we said we'd be happy to. So we've been doing that for about 18 months. And currently in Old Saybrook, excuse me, we have about 7 families in town with school-aged children who are being raised by grandparents. So it's a very important demographic that's often overlooked, and they struggle in a lot of different ways. So I'll just give you one quick example, but technology, I'm looking at that. So grandparents are of a generation where that's not their native way of communicating. And so it's challenging for them maybe to keep track of kids' things on Power School, or to go to virtual meetings and things like that. So coming to us, we can help facilitate some of that connection for them. One of the other things that social services is doing is Senior Strings, which was an idea that Susan Consoli had pre-COVID, which was for a senior citizens violin group. And now it's turned into ukulele, kazoo, tuba, and guitar. And they have about 18 regular players who played at the Starlight Festival. They did a concert at town. But she identified that senior citizens, especially through COVID, were suffering from social isolation. Because of pre-existing conditions and whatnot, they all stayed away from each other. And her idea was to bring them all together in a way that creativity really helps spark a lot of energy in the brain, keeps folks interested, and it's a lot of fun. And so she put a request together for the ARPA committee and was granted some funding for this. She also does a piece with artwork, and they've just transferred Senior Strings and the art program to the estuary. So anybody who's interested in learning more about those classes can go onto osyfs.org and look for the schedule for those classes.
I also saw something that there's artwork at the town hall.
In the first floor, as you go down the ramp, different artists will sign up to show their artwork, and they can actually sell them as well. And then Sue also arranged for the senior artwork to have a showing at the same time as the Senior Strings concert. She also received funding to build a gazebo at senior housing on Sheffield Street, and that is complete except for the landscaping, which because it's winter won't happen until sometime in the spring. But again, it was an outdoor structure so that folks who don't want to be in one room together could still come and maybe share their lunch or conversation in a way to combat loneliness and isolation.
So did the gazebo come out very nicely?
I actually haven't seen it in person. I saw the plans, and I actually should go down there soon and see it. It took a long time to get the plan just right and make sure environmentally it was in the right place and all that, but I think the residents are going to be very happy.
And obviously the plantings will come in the spring once the weather gets warmer. And the ground softens up and isn't frozen yet. So what else do we want to talk about? In terms of the range of population we serve, we just had a community baby shower on Saturday at Acton Public Library. I know you just had Amanda here. Amanda was just here.
But we facilitate the Early Childhood Council. And so that's a program for early intervention and identification of potential learning disorders, but it's really an early literacy program as well. So annually we have the One Book, One Town program, which is where they identify one book and they make sure all the pre-K classrooms get a copy of it. And then the library and our agency design kind of a literacy walk and several events through the month to highlight literacy. The community baby shower was car seat safety, a lot of free items, diapers and whatnot, but early childhood education and dental care and I'm trying to think what else was there. But we also had a bilingual educator who was present because we have a lot of non-primary English-speaking families moving into the community. And we want to make sure we're letting them know about the resources we have as well and making them feel comfortable attending and having someone there who speaks their language and can help them assimilate.
Sort of like English as a second language.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And if people want more information on your organization, where can they go?
Sure. Our website, osyfs.org, and then the town website, which is oldsabrookct.gov.
So all the information that
Yes.
they want on the
Yep.
agency is there. Well,
Right.
we're about to run out of time, but before we do, I want to
Okay.
thank you for coming down. Hopefully we'll see you
Thank
again
you for
soon.
having me.
You got
Thank
it.
you. Anytime.
On behalf of Heather McNeil, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night. We'll see you next time.